other looks. We know the outcomes of this. There are too many monuments were destroyed in European countries. A monument means there is a memory. A memorial means a memory. Maybe they don't remember it. Television is full of different stories, but you have to remind yourself of what the outcome of this for Europe is.
We hope they will be able to gain control of themselves in due time. Please keep your dignity. And you know, I have seen many things. Trees that have been punished, and cats who were not allowed to participate in exhibitions. But there are some things which go beyond common sense. Like, for example, the International Automobile Federation demanded from Russian and Belarusian race car drivers to sign a declaration about their commitment to peace and political neutrality, where it was stated that the use of the word Russian was prohibited to them. They had to sign this document in order to be allowed to participate. This is pure racism as it is. Racism bordering on Nazism. That is how it all starts, just this way. How can a human being be signing a document where he or she denounces his or her nationality? You who banned people from public life for mistreatment, for one single word, a person could be executed publicly, and now it becomes normal, it's getting normal to denounce one's own nationality. How can we speak about morality, law, human rights, conventions? What is it all about? A written denouncing of one's own national identity. And we see this in Europe, in the West. We strongly condemn such manifestations of racism and xenophobia. We have to state that criminal connivance of the West to such manifestations in Ukraine over the past 8 years has led to a situation where ethnic intolerance is already present in Western organizations. We have already mentioned that growing NATO presence in the eastern flank in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania and Bulgaria are provocative in their nature. It's obvious that containing Russia has become the main raison d'etre of the alliance over the past days. The alliance has included the number of its multinational battalions in Eastern Europe, the number of planes patrolling the airspace. At the extraordinary meeting of foreign ministers of the NATO alliance, it was announced that the alliance is going to deploy over 130 planes and 200 ships in the eastern flank. This is being done with participation of Estonian authorities and media under their control. But please, don't be afraid. Russia has never threatened the alliance and isn't threatening it now. At the same time, Russia cannot but react to the confrontational NATO course policy against our country. Therefore, the Russian Federation has put forward the initiative about presenting for us guarantees that would rule out NATO expansion to the east and deployment on the territory of neighboring states of combat systems posing a threat to us, and the alliance configuration getting back to their positions of 1997. Another topic. Against the backdrop of this informational nightmare that we are now observing in the West, let me say a couple of words about the hacker attacks. We noted the publication of a Dutch media that hacker attacks were made with the use of Netherlands servers by spreading disinformation in its own country. Netherlands probably want to use this moment and compensate for their connivance to the hackers in December 2016. Let me remind you, back then, Hague couldn't prevent the attack on the banking system of Russia from the territory of Ukraine. Server capabilities and commando centers were located in the Netherlands. In 2016, the Hague was uneasy when Russian diplomats on the margins of the meetings of the group of governmental experts on achievements in the field of informatization and telecommunications and the Ministerial Council in the OSCE in Hamburg drew attention to this case. Then high-ranking officials from the Netherlands couldn't give a proper response. They referred to the fact that this misbehavior of Ukrainian hackers in the territory of the Netherlands was beyond their control. Now, suddenly, the Netherlands declared that Russia used their servers to attack Ukraine, but as has become traditional, they haven't provided any materials, any evidence. Let me state that Russia is against the use of ICT space for criminal purposes. In conclusion, let me remind you of first full-fledged Russian-Netherlands interagency consultations on information security. They were held in a trustful manner in The Hague in September 2021. The parties exchanged in a trustful manner the opinions on a wide range of use of ICTs. Wasn't that the plan of cooperation and mutual exchange of information was set out, and matters of direct communication in case of incidents were discussed? It is unfortunate that instead of fighting hackers in their territory, The Hague, following the policy of this pseudo-solidarity, simply multiplies allegations against Russia. And once again, something we've mentioned before, we've discussed history, and now let me tell you about something that is very clear to the modern audience. Desecration of memorials in Slovakia. We are outraged by the act of vandalism committed in the night of the 3rd of March in Bratislava against the monument Slavin that honors the memory of Red Army soldiers who fell to liberate the Slovak capital during World War II. These soldiers, well, those who committed this act and desecrated their memory, had no idea that everyone was, among all nationalities, were presented among these soldiers. And today, all nationalities, they have probably been mixed all over these years. Ukrainians were among them, by the way. It was the second case when memorials to Soviet soldiers were desecrated. On the 27th of February, a same act was committed in the city of Košice. We consider these acts as provocative, illegal and immoral. We hope that Slovak authorities will investigate these facts and this will not be repeated. We call upon the Slovak party to strictly observe its obligations as laid down in the Treaty on Friendly Relations and Cooperation between the Russian Federation and the Slovak Republic of 1993 and the agreement between Russia and Slovakia on the graves of servicemen and civilians. We are grateful to the peoples of Slovakia for their care to the memorials of Red Army soldiers, to the care for the burial sites in the country. And we are outraged by the attempts of the vandals to tarnish the immortal deed of fighters against Nazism. There was another act that we met with outright indignation. It was in the city of Katowice in Poland, when the memorial and the gravestones were painted and obscene and insulting writings were made in these memorials. Connivance to the acts of hooliganism is something we are facing right now. There are cynical reports from the Polish media. This time there was an outrageous report in the media, according to which some local citizens allegedly deplored the fact that Ukrainians could have been buried in the graves that had been desecrated. I didn't know how to name it, how to identify it. The citizens of a country that has once been known in its commitment to Christian traditions, including the respect to those who fell. And now they have gone as far as saying that one can desecrate the burial sites of Russians, but can't desecrate the burial sites of Ukrainians. This couldn't happen just overnight. Where does it originate from? Well, I know, I can understand that if media feeds the people with such reports, then probably it will reach its goal. However, it means that something has initiated this. Where does this beastly logic come from? What can I say on this? I can only congratulate NATO propagandists. This is your true victory. You've done this. You've done this. Following the attempts to eliminate in the Polish society the false sense of gratitude to the Red Army for having saved the Polish people during the war, the complete dehumanization is following. We call upon Polish authorities to get back within the field of humanitarian law and morality. And now I stand ready to answer your questions. Международная жизнь. Ms. Zakharova, I have one question. How could you evaluate the plan by Boris Johnson to consolidate Europe and international community against Ukraine? A 6-point plan. The initiative on establishing quote-unquote international group to support Ukraine, presented by Boris Johnson, is considered by us as another attempt to lead anti-Russian Western initiatives. The British leadership says that directly, explicitly, that this group will face such humanitarian tasks as continuing pumping Ukraine aside with weapons and continuing the work to prevent creeping Russification. This is based on such an interesting worldview, creeping normalization of what Russia is doing. The freshly published plans to react to the situation in Ukraine was not surprising. The attempt to kill our economy is a goal they have declared. publicly, read the letters by Ivan the Terrible to their British English partners, you'll find the same. Nothing has changed over centuries. Now they have named and formulated specifically what they want to achieve: suffocating the Russian economy. Previously, they spoke about human rights standards that we have to comply with, and now it's just clear: suffocate the Russian economy. It's obvious that this Russophobic policy can bring no results. The pressure on the Russian economy is hitting its authors even before Russia has responded. Russia hasn't even come up with measures, with its countermeasures, and they already feel it. That is their level of analytic research. So it's obvious that pseudo-solidarity is falling apart because it's not solidarity. We can state that normalization of UK-Russia relations is not what is in the plan of the British authorities. Probably they will finally recognize that this policy is bearing risks, not side effects, but risks not only to the regional security, but also to the economic well-being and prosperity of Europe. The UK has made its choice. It has demonstrated its treatment of the European continent. It has started associating itself with another part of the continent. And probably it fits into the ignorance of geography by some of its top officials. So briefly, let me say, I don't think much of this plan. Mia Russia сегодня. Yes, good afternoon. We have the following question. How could you comment on the statement by UNESCO Director General that parties to the conflict in Ukraine should ensure protection of World Heritage sites? Well, this is just a masterpiece where UNESCO really has to speak up, where it is really a matter of preserving cultural identity, when there is a need in the assistance to preserve the languages of national minorities to prevent xenophobia, where this organization should have worked is Donbass, the Alley of Angels, children who have lived under shelling attacks for 8 years. They paid no attention to this because it was uncomfortable. It simply didn't fit into the general context. They should have reported this and told about this. We understand they are not going to encourage Kyiv to implement the Minsk agreement in a peaceful way, so UNESCO was aware that it wouldn't take them a month or two to work in that region, but rather it was a matter of years. Who wanted to deal with it? Now they have a great field of activities.
Now the OSCE is also showing their active participation. Previously, they could not make them say a word about the current agenda. Now, the situation is different. We noted a statement biased and unilateral statement by UNESCO regarding the situation in Ukraine. Maybe it is the first time in the history of the organization that the head of its secretariat so explicitly violated the constitution for the sake of the collective West countries. The Director General of UNESCO, French citizen André Azoulay, exceeded its powers, forgetting that the issues of territorial integrity and sovereignty are not within UNESCO's mandate. By way of reminder, in accordance with the Constitution, the responsibilities of the Director General and of the staff shall be exclusively international in character. In the discharge of their duties, they shall not seek or receive instructions from any government or from any authority external to the organization. They shall refrain from any action which might prejudice their position as international officials. In other words, the UNESCO Secretariat preferred politicized statements at a point when they could have kept silence. All the more so as UNESCO knows how to keep silence. For 8 years in a row, the leadership of the Secretariat did not note a single oppression of Russian-speaking residents of Ukrainian. They didn't find a single word of sympathy to the victims of the Ukrainian nationalist terrorists in the Donbas. The Russian side repeatedly called upon the organization to give public statements regarding the blatant violations by Ukraine of the 1960 Convention Against Discrimination in Education, the deprival of the majority of a significant portion of the population of the opportunity to use their mother tongue, mopping up national information media space of Ukraine from Russian-speaking Russian media, not only Russian media and foreign media, and they were oppressed and never returned because they were killed if they stayed. Instead of response, we received only empty and substantial formal responses. We could not hear also the voice of UNESCO to protect Russian culture, all the more so as representatives of education, culture, science, sports, communication, information that were affected by the Western witch hunt includes UNESCO's related organizations, specifically UNESCO Artists for Peace, Valery Gergiev. We call upon the officials of international organizations to stop promoting Western Russophobia, and UNESCO should focus on its constitution objective to contribute to peace and security by promoting collaboration among nations through education, science, and culture. That was the field of their work in the Donbas for 8 years. The Russian Federation, on its part, takes all possible steps to protect the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, culture, education facilities, and other civil infrastructure facilities in Ukraine, and also to protect journalists. Now, how many media we have, Russian-speaking media, and we will give an account, of course, or media sources related to Russian holdings were closed, and under what accusations? Did UNESCO utter a single word? It is more than 1, 2, or 5 resources. There are hundreds, considering TV channels, websites, social media accounts, messengers. This process started long before today. It is just now that we see rapid developments, but there were so much oppression and persecution of our journalists abroad. Against the backdrop that we were calling to peace on a daily basis, to the implementation of the Minsk agreements, my every briefing I said Donetsk and Lugansk are parts of Ukraine. The starting position is that they should be reintegrated. They should live as a single country. The Kyiv regime should do everything to ensure joint coexistence. This is something we continuously said, and in this context, our media were forced from the global media space. And now they are being forced because of our special military operation. Whatever you do, whatever step you take, the result will be the same. Do you have the Moscow Post with us? Good afternoon. I have 2 questions. The United States and the UK completely rejected the imports of Russian oil and gas and called upon the others to follow suit. Many other Western countries at least discuss this opportunity. Thus, Russia has a contingency plan in case they lose European market, and to what extent our country is able to reorient its export flows. I would like to draw your attention to the facts. I'm sure you have read. I would like to sensitize you to the statement made by Mr. Novak. It is available on our media resources. He says a lot about what's going on now. So I think this issue does not belong to the dimension of the MFA. Price formation, exportation, energy resources is something our specialist might address better. Mr. Novak comprehensively and in a detailed manner, also looking forward, described and answered this question in his statement. Then my next question is as follows. Do you intend to increase the manpower of the embassies and general consulates in the APR countries, including South America, as the relationship with Europe and the United States are phased out? Nothing I have heard of regarding the phasing out of relationship. Even the phasing out requires much more efforts from diplomats rather than ordinary routine work. Even if we start procedures for executing these statements, and it is not clear whether it's just a formal statement or a practice will follow. Our diplomats are continuously working. Don't think that in the context of this mass hysteria, our diplomats are sitting and waiting. No, our diplomats are doing a lot of work helping our nationals throughout the world, protecting their interests, helping people to relocate, to return, considering what was done to air industry. I'm not talking about logistics, I'm talking about air industry. The air industry is a huge tree with a huge crown with multiple branches, colossal infrastructure. There is a lot of work being done. They are not sitting on their hands. Just another point I would like to make. Interestingly, it's difficult to understand what statements they actually make. The leadership of the Western countries, their ministers, representatives of corporations. On our side, we cannot even identify their decision, whether it is a decision, whether it is a statement of intent, whether it is a final decision or interim decision, or it is not a decision or just a declaration outlining their position. Is it their position or is it the collective position, an imposed or recommended position? If it is a provisional decision or a declaration, then to what extent does it apply? We cannot understand it, even judging by the actions of companies. Now they say they are leaving. Now they say they are leaving temporarily. Now they're saying they're returning. I'm not inventing things. It is very difficult to understand what's going on. The reason being, these decisions are being imposed on them. When you take a decision, you can have doubts. Either you take it after reflections, or upon taking it, you give your ideas and considerations as to the doubts. You can discuss this decision because it is your decision and you bear responsibility for it, and you know how you're going to respond if circumstances change. When, on the other hand, they are given a statement and without explaining it and cannot explain it, it is obvious it is not their decision, not the decision of a company or a sector of economy. Instead, these are politically imposed decisions through political blackmailing, leaving no other choice but to take this viewpoint on the politics, a concept. An offensive. If you have no other questions left, I would like to ask our colleagues if you have any other questions. If there are no other questions left, then I'm bidding you farewell. All the best to you. Thank you so much for your attention.